Congratulations, you've reached the final part of the residual rebate system training, and that is part 4, how it works. Now again, this is not one of those sections that's absolutely necessary, but for those that like the detail, here it is. And we're going to talk about the residual rebate system, and we're going to talk about the rebate points system. Of course, you're going to see the points in your dashboard, so it's a good idea to know what those are. Now just before we get into the full point system, we're going to do a quick review. And that is that the residual rebate system rewards members for their contribution to the club, and it uses the 3 points. And we're not going to concentrate on the personal shopping right now, but we are going to concentrate on the group size and the amount of rebates going into a group. Now another thing we have to consider in the residual rebate system is that we've got 2 groups being developed simultaneously. First, there's the shared array. That is basically a 3x3 structure as people fill in their shopping circles. And that uses the first subpool, which is anything under $20. And then we have the overage connections, where people can have as many connections as they want through many connections. And that uses all the overage subpools, which is anything over $20 in rebates. So to pull all this together for the residual rebate system, let's first talk about group size. So as we discovered in the group balancing, each month all of the members in the club are totaled, and the individual members' shared array groups are counted as a measurement of their contribution to the growth of the club. And what we did there is break everybody down into their various group sizes. And we're measuring that again with our members, and the balancing keeps that in check in terms of the actual group size that measures their contribution to the club. But you can see here that the group is made up of many groups of different sizes, and in fact every person down to 1 person would actually be represented in this graphic. Now the other factor for contribution to the club is group rebate generation. Now we know the group is made up of individuals, and all the individuals will shop at varying subpool levels. But when you total all that up, what you will have is the shared and overage rebates for the total organization. Then you layer that with each individual group, and even though what we saw was the proportion for the total organization, each individual group will have its own percentage of shopping in each of the subpools. So what we had to do was find a fair way to distribute 100% of the global rebates, taking all of this into consideration. And the answer was the residual rebate point system. These points measure contribution. Now you already know the rules regarding rebates. So we just convert that to points. So the rule is members receive points through up to 10 compressed connections from group members that generate rebates in their qualified subpool. So here we have the shared subpool. That's an active member. So every active member will be in this shared subpool. And what will happen is this particular active member will receive points from up to 10 connections of active members in that particular subpool. Now the same goes for the overage subpools. If you're in the $20 subpool, you'll receive points from the members in the subpool. If you're in the 30, you receive points from them. In the 40, receive points from them. And obviously in the 50, you receive points from them. Now just to be sure you get the idea, these points are for each member on each one of these connections through the 10 compressed connections. So in the shared array, that's 3x3. Of course, in the overage, it could be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or more on each individual connection through the 10 compressed connections. Then what happens is the members' accumulated points are multiplied by the global single point value to determine the residual rebate. So how do we determine the global point value? Well, the first thing we do is we take all of the points from all of the subpools. And that's going to give us the global rebate points. All of the points from all of the subpool gives us the global rebate points. So let me give you a very simple example. You've got your total global rebates divided by the global rebate points. So let's suppose the global rebates was $100,000 and the total points was $200,000. Well, that would make the single point value 50 cents. Now again, we've done that for very easy math. These no way equate to what the actuals are going to be. So now how are the individual member rebates calculated? Well, what happens is the individual shopping group points are accumulated through the 10 connections. So let's suppose that point value was 50 cents. And here's the ratio of the subpools of this particular group, the one we've been using all along. And what we've been doing is this graphical representation, and this represents the shared and overage group rebate points. So what we do then is take the members' group rebate points, and let's suppose that's 5,000. We multiply that by the single point value at 50 cents. So this member's residual rebate would be $2,500 for that particular month. So now the question is, how do points create a fair distribution for the global rebate pool? To look at that, we need to consider point compression and balance. So the very first thing we want to do is compression, and that's removing the non-qualifying members as a direct connection. As we've talked many times, not every member is going to be generating rebates in every subpool. So there's going to be a lot of people who just don't qualify in the various subpools. So what we want to do is compress those. That means that qualifying members temporarily connect directly to the previous qualifying member in each subpool. What we're doing here is compacting the connections. So as the group grows, you actually receive rebate points for many, many more connections than just 10. After that, the group size is checked and set at the balanced staged milestone that measures contribution. Now this was all covered in part 3 if you want to go back and review that. But basically, once we're all done with this, then rebates are distributed according to the correct, compressed, balanced milestone. And that's how every member receives their fair contribution of residual rebates without any non-contributing members draining the pool. Now everything we've covered here also applies to rebate enhancements, and rebate enhancements also have points. Now as you already know, we've covered this in detail in part 3, so I'm not going to go over it again here. And as we mentioned in that section, we want to have every active member participating in the enhancements, so what we do is mirror this to the shared array. So in order to properly distribute the enhancements, we also have to give the enhancements some rebate points. Now we're going to have two sets of enhancements. First, under $10. And these are the rebate points given out to the rebates under $10. It actually acts as a separate subpool. Once we get over $10, then this is the other set of rebate points that would be added. Now what you do is you add all those together. For example, now in the shared array, let's suppose on connection 4, you will get 6 plus 8 plus 6. For a total of 20 rebate points on that connections once we have that size enhancement. So again, the points are accumulated through 10 compressed levels, so what we want to do is remove any inactive members, and that would mean that we would have these compressed connections including enhancements. Alright, just to wrap up the conversation about the point system, I want to tell you about the actual rebate connections. The actual rebate point system is designed for the best distribution for new, developing, and mature shopping groups. So when you actually look at the connection and point distribution, we have only 7 connections for the $10 and $20 connections because that's designed for new groups. Then as a group develops, in the 30 and the enhanced, we go to 8 connections. And then for the mature groups, in the $40 and $50 subgroups, and in the second enhancement group, we have 9 and 10 connections. And just to let you know, we already have plans for enhancements over $20. But also remember that the residual rebate system belongs to the members. And if we as a group decide to make changes for the benefit of the group, and the group agrees, that's what we'll do. Remember, the actual definition of the residual rebate system is the directive given to the bank for the distribution of the rebates back to the membership. Now one last thing I want to mention, we do have the overage booster points also. In the last section we covered it as rebates, but it's exactly the same, but it does deal with points. In that we move some points from the lesser subpool to the higher subpools immediately as members move into each of those higher subpools. All of these add up to the residual rebates that can be received as a result of your personal shopping, the group size, and the total amount of rebates generated by the group. So that is it. We've completed the residual rebate system trainings. And I hope through doing this you've really got a clearer idea of what the club is, in that it is a non-registered, not-for-profit, private volunteer membership club. We have no borders. We are not a business of any kind. We just match our members with our merchants in exchange for rebates. And all of those rebates get connected by an international pool. We enhance that pool and we distribute it through the residual rebate system that we've just talked about over the 4 parts of these trainings. So thanks so much for joining me. Just remember to keep it simple. We've covered a lot of material and definitely it is not all needed to be known. Probably the most important one was number 1, and that's the one you should be showing to most people, and don't worry about too much about the rest. It's there for everyone to have because we want full transparency. It's the only reason we've put all this stuff together. But certainly nobody needs to get bogged down in these details. Just want to leave that as a final note. It basically boils down to join, shop, and redeem. So thanks for joining me through these trainings. Here's wishing for you successful shopping and rebate collection through the Worldwide Shoppers Club.